Biollante. One of the most interesting and unique creations from Toho probably ever, and a monster that was definitely ahead of her time. A very unique design that wasn't very well accepted or received at the time of its release. However, Biollante has become one of the most, I would say, adored monsters over the years as fans have grown more accepting and have grown to love the monster much more. And it's unfortunate that it never was received well, or that the movie did not do well in the box office, because Biollante, again, was just an example of just how creative Toho and some of the people they worked with were. And when I say that, Biollante was actually conceived by a dentist by the name of Shinshiro Kobayashi. He was the winner of a storytelling contest for the sequel to Return of Godzilla. Kobayashi kept in mind how he would feel if his daughter had died, and combined this with a mental image he had consisting of Godzilla being consumed by a flower. His idea of Biollante's origins was not too different from those of the final film, though the creature was portrayed in his submission as having no direct link to Godzilla and of having human-level intelligence, as well as maintaining the memoirs of Erica. The draft's portrayal of the character had her physically communicating with a reporter via images of flowers with human faces, and the final Biollante creature had a woman's face. Koichi Kawakita, who had previously worked for Tsuburaya Productions, was assigned to designing and realizing Biollante by Toho after the company became impressed at his work in Gunhead. Kawakita made use of Gunhead's special effects team Studio OX, though designing and building the Biollante props proved problematic, as traditional summation techniques made realizing the requested design of the creature's first form difficult, and the resulting cumbersome model for Biollante's final form was met with disbelief from the special effects team. Biollante's first form was performed by Masao Takagami, who sat within the model's trunk area on a platform just above water level. While the creature's head movements were simple to operate, its vines were controlled by an intricate array of overhead wires, which proved difficult for Godzilla performer Kenpachiro Satsuma to react to during combat scenes, as they offered no tension, thus warranting Satsuma to feign receiving blows from them, despite not being able to perceive them at all. Now, Biollante was really only in one Godzilla movie, which is obviously the titled Godzilla vs. Biollante. There was a short stock footage cameo of Biollante in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, but unfortunately, beyond that, we never really got to see Biollante on the silver screen again. She was also included in 5 games and 3 comics. Biollante to this day remains a monster that, once again, as I mentioned, was just way ahead of her time. You talk to many fans now, and many of them really do like the design. They thought she was very unique, and I have to agree. While I thought the movie in and of itself, when I first saw it, was pretty odd, it's only now, the last couple of years, that I've really become to appreciate Biollante as a monster. And even the story, as odd as it may seem, it was nothing else but original. The first form of Biollante as a rose petal in the lake was pretty surreal to watch for the first time, as your first initial thought, or at least mine, was, it's a giant flower. But it's what it transformed into later that made it such a menacing foe for Godzilla. It was extremely large, could pretty much fit half of Godzilla's body in its mouth. But as you see, this is going to be one of the shorter 30 for 30 videos because, well, we only ever got to see Biollante once. And while we look back at monsters like Mothra and Ghidorah and Rodan, obviously we saw them in multiple movies. But Biollante, I don't know if we'll ever see her again. And if Toho decides to start making movies again in the early 2020s, well, I hope that they reconsider visiting Biollante once again, as even though she was not received well in the early 90s, I think now she would not only be received well, but she'd probably be one of the more likable, one of the more popular kaiju. I mean, she never really was a villain. She was more just a creation. And I don't see Biollante as a villain at all. I see her more as a monster that's just not understood. And it's a character monster that I would definitely like to get to know more and learn more about the story, what its motivation is. But we can only hope. And if we do get to see her again, I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty epic, as she was one of the larger monsters Godzilla ever faced, and in the comic books even larger. There was one scene where they showed Godzilla's display of power where he actually uprooted Biollante off the floor. And we have had discussions here on the channel, especially on the live streams, that Biollante would actually make a pretty good fit in the monsterverse. The way she was created and the fact that she would fit, many of you have said, would perfectly fit in a location like Skull Island. So while we may never see her in the monsterverse, I think there's a good argument for her to actually be able to be in the monsterverse with a grounded story. One person had suggested like a Venus flytrap. So I think it's definitely feasible, but unfortunately, due to the popularity of the monster, or lack thereof at the time, and even now, because only us hardcore fans are really the ones who adore her, she may never ever step foot into the monsterverse. But that does not mean that she's been forgotten, and it does not mean that we can't appreciate what she is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please return tomorrow as we continue the Godzilla 30 for 30 series. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page.